He's the man some say is redefining the world political order. His name is Subramaniam J Shankar, the Minister of External Affairs of the rising civilization state of India. And you're about to get a taste of this amazing rock star on the international stage, who's one of the key leaders remaking that stage into a far more conservative world. Here's Dr. J Shankar roasting George Soros like no one else. Wait until you see this.
I actually made 2 points. One, how the world is changing. It is rebalancing. It is less Euro-Atlantic. I don't think everybody gets that. I think old habits die hard. I mean, very candidly, there are still people in the world who believe that their definition, their preferences, their views must override everything else. So, since you mentioned this specific example, I don't know how familiar people are with what was said at the Munich conference. Essentially, Mr. Soros said India is a democratic country, but he doesn't think the Prime Minister of India is a Democrat. By the way, a few years ago, in the same conference, I was there at that time, he actually accused us of planning to strip millions of Muslims of their citizenship, which of course didn't happen. It was a ridiculous suggestion. But you have to understand what this actually means. I could take a view that the individual in question, Mr. Soros, is a old, rich, opinionated person sitting in New York who still thinks that his views should determine how the entire world works. Now, if I could only stop at old, rich and opinionated, I would put it away. But he is old, rich, opinionated and dangerous. Now, in this particular case, I mean, it is very clear that he has very strong political preferences. He actually thinks that, I mean, doesn't matter that this is a country of 1.4 billion people, we are almost there, whose voters decide how the country should run. He actually thinks, well, if, you know, and again, I cite him as an extreme example, okay, but there are other, you know, manifestations of this in different countries, where people like him think an election is good if the person we want to see wins. If the election throws up a different outcome, then we actually will say it's a flawed democracy. You know, this to my and the beauty is all this is done under the pretense of advocacy of open society, of transparency, etc. So, our generation, we have grown up with concepts like regime change, which influence operations. Now, you can call it what you will. I mean, to me, this really looks the same, with a gloss of some kind of do-goodism on it.
Now, that was an utterly brilliant observation. Soros isn't just old, rich, and opinionated. He's old, rich, opinionated, and dangerous. And he's dangerous because he only accepts democratic outcomes that elect his candidates. Any election, no matter how pristine, no matter how integral, is called into question the moment a candidate, particularly a Hindu nationalist or better civilizationalist candidate like Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, the moment someone like that is elected and elected overwhelmingly, then Soros spends tens of millions of dollars to basically undermine that government, all in the name of supposed open society. And J Shankar calls it out for what it is. It's nothing short of a deliberate, covert regime change operation that undermines the democratically expressed will of the people, all done under the veneer of democratic virtue. That's probably the single most brilliant takedown of Soros you will ever hear. Here's J Shankar schooling a rather arrogant interviewer on the rules of a new civilizational world rising.
One of the foremost geopolitical strategists on Wall Street sent me this question for you. And the question is simple. If and when the choice comes down to it, not today, not tomorrow, but in the future, and she strongly believes it will, For India, will it become, in terms of support, the US or China? And that will be kind of a defining moment that comes out of the situation that we face with Russia right now.
Look, number one, why I wanted to interrupt you in a way. I mean, I'm partly reacting to the previous observation. Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. That if it is you, it's yours. If it is me, it's ours. I think that's something, and I see, reflections of that. Again, in terms of, there is a linkage today which is being made. A linkage between China and India and what's happening in Ukraine. So come on, guys. I mean, China and India happened way before anything happened in Ukraine. So the Chinese don't need a precedent somewhere else in the world on how to, engage us or not engage us, or be difficult with us or not be difficult with us. So as I said, I just see this as frankly a not very clever argument, a very self-serving one.
Now, that questioner, the interviewer there, she was operating from this notion of an old Cold War paradigm that saw the world as bipolar, meaning that there were two major world centers in the world, right? At the time, of course, it was the Soviet Union in the East and the United States in the West. And the entire world had to decide basically which side are you on. Are you on the side of democracy and freedom represented by Europe and the United States? Or are you on the side of communism and repression represented by Russia and China? And what Dr. J Shankar basically just schooled that interviewer in was the fact that that Cold War world where Europe's problems are now the world's problems, either you're on the side of the West or you're not, that world is dead. And that bipolar world is not the world that India lives in. India lives in what's called a multipolar world, where multiple power centers are rising precisely because the old ancient civilizations of India, China, Russia, Turkey, Iran, that were in many ways buried under layers of modernist industrial concrete, are once again rising up and remaking the world order. India is 1/5 of the world's population. It's the 5th or 6th largest economy in the entire world. India is, in many respects, its own world, and it will govern according to the unique interests and values of that distinctly Indian world. Here's a Western journalist about to get a little history and economics lesson from Dr. J Shankar.
But still making sure that Europe is not freezing to death in the winter, or just increasing your imports by 5 times?
No. Europe has managed to reduce its imports while doing it in a manner in which it is comfortable for Europe.
Comfortable?
It's manageable.
It's maybe a little bit of an overstatement.
Now, if at 60,000 euros or whatever is your per capita income, you are so caring about your population. I have a population at $2,000. I also need energy. I'm not in a position to pay high prices. The price of oil has doubled. So, and what Europe is doing is also moving into the Middle East and diverting production out of the Middle East into Europe and raising prices. So European actions actually are putting pressure on the global oil markets and on my imports as well. So I think it's something which, if European political leadership understandably would like to soften the impact on their population, I think it's a privilege they should extend to other political leaderships as well.
Are you reluctant toward Moscow as well, because Russia is India's most important supplier of weapons and military equipment?
And therefore?
Are you reluctant to criticize Moscow?
No, I think, look, we have a relationship with Moscow. We've had a long-term relationship with Moscow. I think it's important to look at that history of the relationship. It was a relationship built in a period when Western democracies used to arm a military dictatorship called Pakistan and deny India defensive weapons. So if we are talking about principles, let's talk a little bit of history out here. So how did the Indian exposure to Russia and previously to Soviet Union get built up? Because the Western democracies, for whatever reason, decided that their natural partner in our part of the world was a military dictatorship.
Would you consider India an ally of Russia?
No, I think India doesn't. We are an independent country. We do not define ourselves or perceive ourselves in alliance terms. That's very much a Western terminology. It's not something, it's not a term that we use.
Hey, just a quick reminder, gang, that our merch store is getting a huge makeover. We've got brand new designs coming to the Turley Talks merch store in the next month, and that means we need to make room. So if you want the best in Patriot gear, you need to click on that link below right now. All the top designs featured on the store.turleytalks.com site are limited quantity and won't be available for long. So make sure you click on that link below right now and grab one of these incredible designs for yourself or a fellow patriot and stand boldly for truth. Don't miss out on owning one of these amazing designs before they disappear forever. Click on that link below or go to store.turleytalks.com.
And how do you respond to this common refrain that most politicians seem to indulge in from the Quad countries, that this is not against anyone, we are not a security grouping, we are not a military grouping, why are we apologetic?
No, I don't think, look, we are not apologetic. I do believe, because I keep reminding people of 2004, because to me, if your origins are in common good, there's an innate virtue in your existence, okay? So, we do stand for something. What I would not like to be defined as is standing against something or somebody, because that diminishes me. That makes it out as though some other people are the center of the world and I'm only there to be for them or against them. I don't think, actually, I think I'm the center of the world, but that's a different matter.
Okay, so
I think I am the center of the world. Well, I have to say, if Subramanyam J Shankar continues to change the world order like he's currently doing, truer words have never been uttered. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on the Democrats getting caught red-handed in a massive banking scandal. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.